3 lawyers were waiting when I walked into the restaurant. Not one. 3. Their leather folders were already open, neatly arranged beside untouched glasses of water. My mother sat at the center of the table wearing the same satisfied smile she used whenever she thought she'd cornered someone. I stopped walking. For a second, nobody spoke. Then my younger sister glanced at the lawyers and smirked. That was when I knew this wasn't a family dinner. My name is Savannah Brooks, and at 31, I thought I understood exactly how far my family would go to get what they wanted. I was wrong. 2 weeks earlier, I'd refused to contribute $60,000 toward my sister's wedding. I wasn't broke. I owned a successful consulting firm and could technically afford it. That wasn't the point. For years, my mother treated my earnings like a community fund dedicated to solving everyone else's problems. This time I said no. Apparently, my answer hadn't been accepted. "Sit down," my mother said calmly. I took the empty chair. One lawyer slid a stack of papers toward me. My mother folded her hands and smiled. "Sign these," she said, "or you'll regret it." I looked at the documents. Then I looked back at her. And instead of reaching for a pen, I turned toward the entrance and said 4 words. "Meet my husband first." The room froze. Every head turned toward the entrance. My husband stepped inside with the calm confidence that always made people underestimate him. Ethan wasn't loud, intimidating, or dramatic. He didn't need to be. He simply walked to the table carrying a thin black briefcase. My mother's smile faded. The lawyers exchanged quick looks. Ethan greeted everyone politely before taking the seat beside me. "Sorry I'm late," he said. My sister rolled her eyes. "Great. Now, can we get this over with?" One of the lawyers cleared his throat and pushed the documents closer. I finally looked through them. The first page made my stomach tighten. It wasn't a request. It was an agreement. According to the paperwork, I would transfer $60,000 into a wedding trust managed by my mother. If I refused, the family intended to challenge my late grandfather's estate arrangement, claiming I had improperly influenced him before his death. The accusation was absurd. But it was also dangerous. Grandfather had left me a significant share of his assets because I spent years helping him run his business while everyone else ignored him. My mother leaned forward. "You can avoid a very ugly legal fight." Ethan quietly opened his briefcase. "Interesting," he said. The lead lawyer frowned. Then Ethan placed a single document on the table, and the color immediately drained from the lawyer's face. The lawyer stared at the document so long that nobody spoke. My mother noticed first. "What is it?" she demanded. The man didn't answer immediately. He read the page again, then slowly removed his glasses. A knot formed in my stomach. Ethan remained completely calm beside me. Finally, the lawyer looked across the table. "Where did you get this?" Ethan folded his hands. "Directly from the court records." My mother's confidence flickered. The lawyer swallowed. "This changes things." My sister laughed nervously. "What exactly changes?" The lawyer slid the document toward my mother. I watched her eyes move across the page. The smirk vanished. For the first time that evening, she looked genuinely frightened. "What is this?" she whispered. Ethan answered before anyone else could. "It's proof that Savannah wasn't the only beneficiary grandfather planned to protect." The room fell silent. I had no idea what he meant. My mother read faster, her hands beginning to shake. One lawyer quietly closed his folder. Another leaned back and stopped taking notes entirely. Something enormous was happening, and somehow I was the last person at the table who understood it. Then my mother slammed the document down. "That's impossible." Ethan met her stare. "No," he said evenly. "What's impossible is pretending you never knew it existed." My sister looked between them. Then she asked a question that changed everything. "Mom, what aren't you telling us?" The question hit the table like shattered glass. My mother didn't answer. That alone terrified me. Growing up, she always had an explanation, an excuse, or someone else to blame. Silence was never her habit. My sister looked confused. "Mom, still nothing." Ethan slid the document toward me. My eyes moved across the page. Halfway through the first paragraph, my pulse started racing. Grandfather had created a sealed amendment to his estate 6 months before he died. The amendment contained one condition. If any family member attempted to challenge my inheritance through coercion, threats, or fraudulent legal action, their own inheritance would be permanently revoked and transferred elsewhere. I looked up in disbelief. My mother knew. She had known all along. The date beside her signature proved it. She had personally acknowledged receiving notice years earlier. "You knew this?" I asked. Her expression hardened. "Your grandfather wasn't thinking clearly." One of the lawyers immediately spoke. "Mrs. Brooks, I strongly advise you not to continue." She ignored him. My sister turned pale. "Wait, if we filed this challenge?" The lawyer nodded. "You could lose everything connected to the estate." The room erupted into overlapping voices. Then Ethan opened the briefcase again. "I haven't shown them the second document yet." Every conversation stopped instantly. Even the lawyers stared. I looked at him. "What second document?" Ethan's expression didn't change. "The one explaining why your mother was desperate enough to risk everything." Nobody moved. The air felt heavy enough to choke on. My mother stared at Ethan with a look I'd never seen before. It wasn't anger. It was fear. Real fear. Ethan removed another folder from the briefcase and placed it carefully on the table. The lead lawyer opened it first. His eyebrows shot upward. "What the hell?" My mother lunged forward. "Don't read that." The reaction told me more than any document could. The lawyer continued anyway. Page after page turned. The silence grew unbearable. Finally, he looked directly at my mother. "Is this accurate?" She didn't answer. My chest tightened. "Ethan," I said quietly. "What's in there?" He looked at me with visible hesitation. Then he told me. 3 years earlier, my mother had secretly borrowed a massive amount of money against assets she expected to inherit from grandfather. Money she never actually received. The debt hadn't disappeared. It had multiplied. My sister's extravagant wedding wasn't the real problem. The wedding was a cover. The $60,000 was only the first payment my mother needed to keep creditors from exposing everything. My sister's face turned white. "You used my wedding?" My mother stood abruptly. "This is none of your business." The lawyer shook his head. "It became everyone's business when you attempted legal coercion." Then the restaurant manager approached our table. And what he whispered to my mother made her nearly collapse. My mother gripped the edge of the table. "What did you say?" The manager lowered his voice again. I couldn't hear every word, but I caught enough. "2 investigators, asking for you, waiting outside." The color vanished from her face. My sister looked around nervously. "Investigators?" The lead lawyer immediately closed the folder. "Mrs. Brooks, if there are investigators involved, I strongly recommend you stop speaking." My mother ignored him. She grabbed her purse and stood. "I'm leaving." Before she could take a step, Ethan calmly spoke. "They already know you're here." She froze. The entire restaurant suddenly felt too quiet. My heart pounded as pieces finally began fitting together. The debt. The forged legal threat. The desperate demand for money. None of this had been about a wedding. It was survival. One of the lawyers looked disgusted. "Please tell me you didn't use estate documents as collateral." My mother's silence was answer enough. The lawyer shut his eyes. Oh my God. Even my sister backed away from her. "Mom, what did you do?" For the first time all evening, my mother looked small. Not powerful. Not controlling. Just cornered. Then 2 professionally dressed people entered the dining room. They weren't police officers. That somehow felt worse. One of them approached the table and addressed my mother by name. Then he placed a document in front of her. I watched her read the first page. And I realized she wasn't being investigated. She was being sued by someone far more dangerous. My mother's hands trembled as she stared at the lawsuit. The woman who delivered it remained perfectly composed. "We attempted to resolve this privately," she said. "You declined every opportunity." My mother looked up. "You don't understand." The woman's expression never changed. "Oh, we understand very well." The lead lawyer requested the document. After reading 2 pages, he leaned back slowly. I had never seen someone lose confidence so quickly. "What is it?" my sister asked. He exhaled heavily. Your mother didn't just borrow against expected inheritance. Nobody spoke. The lawyer continued. She submitted financial statements claiming ownership of assets she never legally possessed. My stomach dropped. That wasn't a misunderstanding. That was fraud. My mother immediately shook her head.
No.
That's not what happened. The woman across from her opened a folder. We have signed applications, recorded communications, and supporting documents. My sister covered her mouth. I couldn't even process what I was hearing. The woman turned toward me. Miss Brooks, none of this concerns you personally. Then she looked back at my mother. However, the attempted pressure campaign against your daughter significantly increased our interest. The room went silent again. For years, my mother controlled every family conversation. Now she couldn't control a single one. Then my sister stood up. Tears filled her eyes. And instead of defending our mother, she pointed directly at her. Tell her the truth. My mother began crying. My mother's tears weren't dramatic. They were exhausted. The kind that appear when every escape route finally disappears. She sat down slowly and looked at me. Not at the lawyers. Not at the investigators. At me. For years, I had been the reliable daughter. The one expected to fix problems, absorb blame, and provide money whenever someone else made a mess. My mother knew it.
So did I.
I thought I could solve it before anyone found out, she whispered. My sister shook her head. You tried to sacrifice Savannah. No one argued. Because it was true. The investigators gathered their documents. The lawyers quietly packed their folders. The pressure campaign, the inheritance challenge, the wedding demand. Everything had collapsed under the weight of the truth. Then my mother looked at me again. I'm sorry. The words landed differently than I expected. Not because they erased anything. They didn't. But for the first time, they weren't followed by excuses. I stood and picked up my coat. I hope you figure this out, I said. It wasn't forgiveness. It was freedom. Ethan took my hand as we walked toward the exit. Behind us, my family faced consequences they created themselves. Ahead of me was something I hadn't felt in years.
Peace.
And nobody could make me pay for it again.